A small adjustment that triggered massive change. It started as a minor tweak, barely worth mentioning in a weekly meeting. A small adjustment to a process everyone assumed was already optimized. No one expected it to matter. No one imagined it would ripple far beyond its original scope. To understand why this mattered, we need to return to a moment when markets believed efficiency had peaked. Systems were fast. Data was abundant. Margins were thin but reliable. Improvements were measured in fractions, not breakthroughs. In that environment, small changes felt cosmetic, safe to ignore. This story matters now because large transformations often begin where attention is weakest, not with bold moves or radical ideas, but with subtle deviations that reveal how fragile optimal systems can be when conditions shift. The first reveal begins when an operations manager tasked with improving execution efficiency. His mandate wasn't strategic. It was technical. Reduce delays, smooth workflows, cut unnecessary steps. In reviewing the process, he noticed something odd. A safeguard designed for rare stress events was being triggered during normal conditions. Instead of questioning the safeguard, the system compensated around it, adding buffers, rerouting flows, absorbing friction silently. Performance looked fine on paper, but complexity was growing underneath. The manager wondered what would happen if the system stopped compensating and simply adjusted the trigger itself. The second reveal came when he tested the adjustment in isolation. A slight change to the threshold. Nothing extreme. Just enough to align the safeguard with actual conditions instead of theoretical ones. The result surprised him. Execution improved immediately. Delays dropped. Error rates declined. The system became simpler, not riskier. The third reveal emerged when the change was rolled out more broadly. Other teams noticed improvements they couldn't explain. Bottlenecks disappeared. Coordination improved. What had been treated as a minor operational tweak began altering behavior across departments. The adjustment hadn't just improved efficiency. It had changed incentives. And once incentives shift, systems rarely stay the same. What followed would show how something almost invisible could trigger change on a scale no one anticipated. As the adjustment spread, its effects multiplied in unexpected ways. Teams that once worked around the old safeguard began trusting the system again. Manual overrides dropped. Workarounds disappeared. Decisions that had been delayed out of caution now moved forward with clarity. The organization felt lighter, faster, more coherent. The conflict emerged when risk teams noticed a change. On paper, nothing had broken. Limits were respected. Error rates were down. Yet the adjustment challenged a principle they had defended for years. Safeguards should never be relaxed, even when conditions change, even when data suggests improvement. The manager explained the logic carefully. The safeguard wasn't removed. It was recalibrated. Its original purpose had been protection against extreme scenarios. But over time, the market environment had evolved. What was once rare had become routine. The system had adapted around the safeguard instead of updating it, creating hidden complexity and inefficiency. The tension deepened when leadership asked for stress tests. The revised system performed better under moderate strain and no worse under severe scenarios. Simplicity improved resilience. But accepting that conclusion meant admitting something uncomfortable. The organization had been mistaking caution for safety. As confidence in the adjustment grew internally, something else changed. External partners noticed. Execution quality improved. Transaction costs declined. Timing became more predictable. What had been a local fix began influencing the firm's position in the broader market. Competitors sensed a shift without understanding it. They saw improved outcomes, but couldn't trace the cause. Some assumed new technology. Others suspected insider advantage. Few considered that the change came from simplifying a process everyone else had left untouched. The buildup accelerated as the adjustment affected capital flow. Faster execution allowed for tighter strategies. Reduced friction improved liquidity usage. Opportunities once avoided became viable. And with each improvement, the system reinforced a behavior the change encouraged. But not everyone was comfortable. Risk committees debated whether the adjustment had gone too far. Was the system now exposed to rare but catastrophic events? Or had it finally aligned protection with reality? The debate wasn't about data anymore. It was about philosophy. Whether safety comes from layers of precaution or from clarity and alignment, the answer would soon be tested. Because markets don't care about intent. They test structure. And the structure had just been changed in a way no one fully understood yet. The test arrived unexpectedly, as it always does. A sudden surge in activity stress systems across the market. Volume spiked. Timelines compressed. Decision windows narrowed. For many firms, this kind of pressure exposed bottlenecks that had been hidden during calmer periods. Inside the organization, the revised system behaved differently. Where others slowed, it adapted. The recalibrated safeguard activated precisely when needed, not too early, not too late. Execution stayed smooth. Errors didn't cascade. Teams responded with confidence instead of hesitation. What had once been a theoretical improvement was now a practical advantage. The conflict sharpened as comparisons became unavoidable. Partners noticed the difference immediately. Transactions cleared faster. Commitments were honored without delay. While competitors scrambled to manage stress manually, this system absorbed it naturally. The small adjustment had transformed how pressure moved through the organization. The buildup intensified when analysts overlaid performance data from the stress period. The results were clear. The firm had not taken on more risk. It had redistributed it intelligently. Instead of forcing the system to compensate constantly, the adjustment allowed risk to surface and resolve in controlled moments. Fragility had been replaced by flexibility. Risk committees revisited their concerns with new urgency. The feared catastrophic exposure never appeared. Instead, the system showed something unexpected. Fewer extreme responses, less forced intervention, and faster recovery. The safeguard, once a blunt instrument, had become precise. Across the market, confusion spread. Firms facing execution failures blamed technology, staffing, even luck. Few recognized the deeper issue. Their systems were still compensating around outdated assumptions. Layers of protection designed for a different era were now amplifying stress instead of containing it. The manager realized the true significance of what had happened. The adjustment didn't just improve performance. It revealed how much complexity had been hiding inefficiency. The more systems adapt around misaligned rules, the more fragile they become. As word spread internally, the conversation shifted. Teams stopped asking whether the adjustment was safe. They asked why the safeguard had remained unchanged for so long. What other assumptions were being compensated around instead of questioned? The moment of clarity arrived quietly. The organization wasn't safer because it had added protection. It was safer because it had removed distortion. And that insight carried implications far beyond a single process. It suggested that many of the market's most entrenched risks didn't come from bold decisions. They came from rules that were never updated, rules that quietly shaped behavior long after their purpose had expired. And now, those rules were beginning to break under the weight of a world they no longer fit. The final phase would determine whether this lesson stayed local or rewrote expectations across the entire market. The wider impact became visible only after the stress had passed. While many firms spent weeks repairing damage, this organization returned to normal operations almost immediately. No emergency fixes, no frantic explanations, just quiet continuity. And in markets, continuity after disruption is the rarest signal of all. The climax wasn't a public acknowledgement. It was imitation. Competitors began adjusting their own safeguards, chasing the same improvements without understanding the source. Some copied the change directly. Others layered new controls on top of old ones, missing the point entirely. The difference showed quickly. Those who simplified adapted. Those who added complexity struggled even more. Inside the firm, the adjustment triggered a broader review. Teams questioned long-standing rules they had worked around for years. Thresholds were re-examined. Assumptions were tested against current behavior instead of historical comfort. What began as a small operational tweak became a cultural shift away from automatic caution and toward intentional design. The resolution unfolded gradually. Performance stabilized across cycles. Stress events became manageable instead of disruptive. Risk felt visible instead of hidden. The system no longer depended on constant compensation to function. It responded, then moved on. The manager who made the adjustment never framed it as innovation. He described it as alignment. Aligning protection with reality. Aligning incentives with behavior. Aligning systems with the world they actually operated in, not the one they were built for years ago. The lesson traveled quietly through the market, not as a headline, but as a realization among those paying attention. Many of the risks we fear aren't caused by too little protection. They're caused by protection that no longer fits. Safeguards designed for rare extremes become dangerous when extremes become normal. Complexity meant to ensure safety becomes fragility when it hides truth. And systems that refuse to update their assumptions eventually fail under their own weight. The small adjustment didn't trigger massive change because it was bold. It triggered massive change because it was honest. Sometimes the most powerful transformation doesn't come from adding something new. It comes from finally letting go of what no longer belongs. So what do you think? How many outdated rules are still shaping the markets right now, unnoticed? A small